Hi, this is Terry with Exactline Tools. Today we're going to pick up where we left off on this Nissan Frontier. Damage that was on the side that goes from the front fender to the rear, all the way down the rear bedside. Here we're having a look at it and we can see the damage. In the series of videos we will be repairing all the damage, and today we're going to focus on the rear door. We can see there's a fair amount of damage. It goes about through the middle of the door and even hits down into the style line a little bit. We can see we've started out by pulling it out and preparing the surface. Now I'm applying my first coat of plastic filler, and I'm coating the entire area that I've sanded back and cleaned up after I did my initial metal straightening. And I want to get the plastic filler from side to side, up and down into the paint area, and cover the entire area that I'm going to sweep. I want to press it in nice so it holds on tight to the car, to both the metal and the paint. I'll take it up just a little bit higher, just to give me a little bit greater margin for the repair. Now I'm using a blade with a stiffener on it, which will make it a pretty much stiff blade. It's a number 2. It could be anyone with the stiffener and it'll work fine. I'm starting down at the bottom and moving up over the area. Now what I'm doing here is I'm moving and organizing the plastic filler. It's taking its cues from both ends. That would be the door jamb between the front door and the rear rear of the door. And I'm simply bridging those two areas, imparting a perfect shape. This truly does impart a perfect shape. It removes all of the overfill and it meters it out to the point where it stops the plastic filler from flowing under the blade once it reaches the area that's not damaged. I'm cleaning up a little bit, just removing some of this so I don't totally cement that style line in place, even though it's covered with tape. Now I've sanded this down a little bit with the DA. I have some metal showing through. That's not a problem. The blade rests right on top of that, so it's not protruding from the surface. It's just showing that that's where the blade touches the area that supports it along the control surface on the left side. Now I'm placing a little more plastic filler just in this area that I've sanded down a little bit. Because of that metal showing through, I want to do another little sweep over it and create a nice round radius, which we have in this part of the door. That'll support me as I move forward with my consecutive sweeps. Using 180 grit. Again, I'm using 180 grit because it's not removing a lot of material. It's just smoothing over the surface, which nearly has a perfect shape already, even after the first sweep. Now there are some inconsistencies in the surface, but the overall shape is beginning to be perfect, dictated by the two control surfaces on either side. The blade just makes the transition, and it spares you from having to do all the shaping for getting yourself in trouble with putting on too much plastic filler and turning the whole repair into a fat repair, which would make the radius of the rear door not correspond with the radius on the front door, and it would be very obvious. So we're just smoothing it down with 180 grit, and it comes right down. I'm not concerned at all about the low spots. We have a lot of area that transitions all the way across. You can see the lines that run horizontally in the plastic filler. Those are all just fine for what I'm setting this up for in terms of the next sweep. But I'm just roughing it out, smoothing it out a little bit into the paint up there, and preparing it for the next sweep. We do have a lot of little low spots and imperfections to fill, but we're well on our way to a perfect shape. Now I'm going to change my paper to another new piece of 180 grit. Again, I'm using 180 grit, a 6-inch disc. This is very cheap sandpaper in terms of auto body materials and supplies. It is about as cheap a piece of paper as you can buy. It comes in a roll, and it doesn't take too many of them to accomplish a job like this. Of course, this is I'm just using it to smooth down the plastic filler, just lightly touching it and the paint up at top a little bit, but it's not aggressive, and it does the job just perfectly. Smooths it out for the next sweep. Feels pretty good. A couple little spots I'd like to just feather out a little bit more. Again, it's 180 grit. I like to show you that so you don't think I'm switching up to a more coarse paper. I use 180 grit throughout the entire repair, and it moves along just as quick as I could hope for. And it doesn't do any damage at all to the paint that would cause problems after the car has been delivered, and it cures. So I'm blowing it off, having a little look at it here. Looks pretty good. Now I'm applying my second coat of plastic filler, and just applying it over the entire area. I'm pushing it down tightly onto the surface to get good adhesion, making sure I fill all the areas with a good covering of plastic filler. That's what makes the sweep work so well, when it has a surface that provides the blade enough material to transform it into the shapes that the body is dictating. That is the surrounding area that we're matching this repair to, which would be the edge of the door in the rear and the door jamb meeting the front door. Those are my two control surfaces, and everything in between is going to fall exactly into shape. This removes the need to give it that shape myself, which could be quite time consuming. I'd have to be careful not to put too much plastic filler on it to make it into a fat repair, and the blade meters it out, as it's doing right now, into exactly the right radius on the horizontal plane, and it's smoothing it into the paint, the undamaged area of the door, up top. So it's leaving very little work to do, which I really love. It works great. Okay, once again, I treat myself and I put another fresh piece of 180 grit sandpaper on my finished DA, and I move across the repair, just lightly knocking it down, just holding the DA steady and moving back and forth in a nice even flow, so I don't concentrate on any one particular area too much. I just want to smooth the surface of the plastic filler down. Again, we can see the lines running horizontally through it. Those are all the spots in the sweep that actually did make it all the way across. They define the shape of the panel's radius on the horizontal plane, and that's really all I need. I can come back right after this and do a vertical sweep, which will eliminate all of that and give a perfect radius from top to bottom. It has a radius in both directions. It's a nicely contoured panel, and most panels are like this, and so I can utilize both directions and dial in on the perfect shape. Now I'm applying my third application of plastic filler. You can see as I move through this repair, I'm not doing any hard work at all, really. No, I'm not defining this by getting out there with a mud hog or an air file, and I'm not creating a bunch of dust. I am moving and organizing the plastic filler with each and every sweep, redefining it into perfection. So all I have to do is clean up the surface a little bit and do my sweep, my fill and my sweep over that, and it will become eventually a perfectly shaped panel as you move up to that level. Now I'm doing that vertical sweep that I mentioned, and we can see there's some low spots in the middle that I expected. This sweep is supported by all of the shape I've given it on the horizontal plane, and we're getting a beautiful shape now in the other direction, on the up and down or the vertical plane. Put that plastic filler in there where it's low. Again, I'm moving around and organizing the plastic filler so I don't have to come back later and level this out and give precise shape to it by hand, freehand, with a mud hog or any other device. I'm establishing it right now, so it is truly the fastest way to get this perfect shape. Anything after it cures is much slower. You've waited for it to cure. So we're going across it again, getting a nice, beautiful shape, establishing a beautiful radius from top to bottom to correspond to the previous radius that we established from side to side on a horizontal. Again, we got a piece of 180 grit sandpaper. We're just buzzing over this and knocking it down, cleaning it up, more or less treating the surface, smoothing it out. We don't really care about any sort of air bubbles or anything like that, or streaks in it that might occur at this point. What we want to do is just establish the perfect shape. Those are easy to replace or to repair, and we'll do that just before we send it over to paint. Going up and down, it feels really straight, like a undamaged panel. I can tell you that by holding this finished EA and moving over it. It really has taken on the shape. Now this is something that, with a little bit of patience, anybody can do. If you're a seasoned journeyman technician, this is going to probably be second nature. If you're a hobbyist or an enthusiast that wants to do your own bodywork, you're going to find that it's fairly simple, fairly intuitive, fairly easy to pick up, and the results are stunning. This method of doing bodywork will rival any top technician's ability to straighten a panel this large, this fast, this accurate. The blade does it, the blade does the work. So we continue to go across the surface and smoothing down the surface. That's all we're doing with this 180 grit. I haven't done any shaping at all in these three sweeps. The sweeps have done all the shaping, bringing it up to a level of perfection we've almost reached. We can see that we have really, well, you can't see until it gets paint on it. And that's why I always include that in my videos. I don't just say, okay, look, we see the job is finished. It's absolutely perfect. You don't have to take my word for it. A few more minutes, I'll show it to you in paint, and you can decide. But I can tell you that the shape is perfect because it's a mechanical operation. It's not intuitive. It's not a matter of me feeling the surface and sighting it out and blocking it and trying to get it right and cheese grating it and everything else. These steps have been very simple that really require very little time to become very proficient at. We're going to continue to just move this down a little bit, sand it a little. Okay, now on the edge of the door, it folds back towards the bedside. That's where we had the line of tape. And that's why I put the line there, because that would support the blade. Now we're going to fill that in a very simple way. I'm just going to curve the spreader a little bit because of the nature of this little piece of the panel. This works just fine. It gives me a slight curve to the surface of the plastic filler, and it fills it up perfectly. So that's an easy approach there, and that kind of completes the overall door. We still have some areas to fix with the style line. I'm filling in at the edge of the door where the damage was repaired, making it nice and clean and square as it should be when you open the door and view it as a brand new door. Now we've got those little areas up there that I'm going to press some plastic filler in really tight. I'm not putting anything on the surface of that shaped area. I don't want to distort it at all. I just want to fill those areas I've been talking about. Blemishes, little marks in the surface. Those are very easy to finish in the last part of the repair, which I'm in right now. So you can see I'm pressing it very tight, just filling the little air bubbles, little marks, indentations, and filling those and removing all of the remaining plastic filler. I don't want to change that area. It's got a perfect shape. I'm very happy with it. This is why I don't worry about air bubbles being introduced to the plastic filler at any stage, including when I'm mixing the plastic filler. My only goal is to mix it and get it on the car as quick as possible, so I have the most amount of time to play making beautiful sweeps. And when I get the one I like, I can just stay with it. Again, 180 grit, going to knock down the side area that folds sideways towards the bedside and finish that area up, rough it out. This was my first application of plastic filler in that area, so you can see just how much it filled. I think I got most of it filled to the degree I need. I might have to touch up a couple areas. It's looking like it's coming right into shape. And we'll continue sanding that a little bit. And this is probably the only real shaping I've done on this job. Now these areas here, I am smoothing it down. You saw me put a very thin press coat on there. And now I'm moving across that just to knock it down a little bit. Take away any glaze that might be on the filler. Smoothing it down, so I'll be prepared to sand it for the final sanding when I get to that point. This whole repair, which includes the entire door, which is about the length of the blade, was done relatively quickly. We're almost through this repair. I do have a little bit to do on the style line, but that should come into shape pretty quickly. All the imperfections that I filled, they're all filled up now. It really feels like a brand new door, and giving it a little bit more sanding and smoothing it down. This becomes, again, pretty obvious when you're doing the repairs. You can see just what needs a little attention and what is already accomplished. And I'm blowing it off, and we're going to have an overall look with some guide coat on it. Here we're using once again the powdered guide coat, which I prefer. It's as soon as you apply it, it's ready to go. You don't have to wait for it to dry like you do with some aerosol guide coats that clog the sandpaper as well. This doesn't clog the sandpaper, and it gives you a really nice indicator to work with. Here I'm using, once again, 180 grit on my long block, which is a flat extruded aluminum block, no foam on it, so it cuts very accurately. It may look like it's cutting slowly, but it is leveling this down pretty quick, and once the area has been blocked like this, it's been blocked. That means it's not just roughed out, it's roughed out and blocked with 180 grit, which puts you right in line to send it to paint. You can go over it, they will, and paint with 220 or 320 grit, most likely on a finished DA. The blocking is pretty much done here. What I do at this moment right now is the result you're going to look at in a few moments when it comes out of paint. Blow the block off a little bit and sand it in the other direction. This door is relatively flat, and so I'm just kind of skimming over it. In doing blocking like this, again, I'm not putting a heavy tool on it, which might distort this door skin. It's had, a fair amount of metal work done to it, so it could be vulnerable to flexing. So with the block and fine paper, I just lightly go over it. I don't distort it, and it's coming right into shape. We've only been at this for a couple of minutes, and a lot of the guide coat has been removed. And any place that it's removed and there is no black is perfectly in shape. We don't have to take it any further. Again, that's the beauty of the blade. It imparts a very precise shape, and that's why I can use this hard block with fine paper and still expedite the job. Another view, it's a 180 grit, put a new piece on, so this is going to cut it down much quicker. And we see we're making quite a bit of headway. We see a little bit of area towards the front of the door that still remains dark. That may require a sweep. The other ones that you can see me moving across right now look like they should all disappear quite soon, leaving a perfectly shaped area, which is quite large. It takes it right to the across the entire door, with the exception of the area at the front of the door where we can see it's dark. I don't think that'll block out. I'm using my blade block, which is a spring steel blade with handles. Again, 180 grit. I'm using it here because it has a curve from top to bottom that I want to be able to accommodate with some flexibility. You can see how that's brought that into shape. Very natural-like, because the blade block meets that radius perfectly. And it's a hard block also. There's no foam on that block also. So the cut is super accurate. You can see where it, I can kind of ease up where it meets the edge of that style line. And makes it pretty easy to keep track because it doesn't do a lot of overcutting. It just cuts where you direct it to. And it works really well. I'm trying to just get it up to the pencil line as close as I can without eliminating it, just to keep it there for a reference at this point. I'll give it a little bit more, see if I can take it a little bit closer. Yeah, and that looks pretty good there. I'm taking my scribe and I'm marking that line to get a very accurate body line. I want to be able to stay within that. So I've taped it, and now I'm blocking it on the other side, coming up to that line. Looks good. Now this area here, I want to do a little sweep over it to get the right contour in that area. On the end, which I mentioned, I want to do a little sweep. And then through these areas, again, we're going to do some tight pressed plastic filler to fill the imperfections. Now here I'm doing a little clock sweep. Again, I don't want to get hung up in the style line, so I go across it in a clock sweep. I'm doing this just because the metal comes through a little bit there, and that was an area that I wanted to provide a perfect radius with, which I can get moving across it the way I am in a clock sweep this way. You can experiment if you're doing your own repair to align it with the area that's necessary. This is the 2 control points that I've chosen, and it works really great. Now we're going to put it on this area one more time, see if I can get just a little better sweep. It's the beauty of using the blade. It's almost addictive. When you start doing sweeps, you keep trying for one better and better. Some sweeps you'll make will be amazing. They will create a shape that you never thought your hands could possibly provide for, but it happens because it's a mechanical device that works extraordinarily well in shaping material as it transitions across it. The spring steel blade with the Teflon laminate over it, move plastic filler like nothing else can. It's the slipperiest material on the planet, with a blade that is shaped to conform to the body. You can't miss. I'm filling the area up front, which I pointed out earlier, and I'm going to do a little sweep across that and get that in alignment. I'm just using a little short an 8-inch blade across that. It's a very thin sweep. Again, this doesn't influence the broader area right next to it on the left that I'm happy with. I just want to come up to it and meet it with precise alignment and contour. Now I'm going to sweep it one more time, try to get it really nice and smooth. That looks good. Blend it in with the adjacent part of the repair right in that area I don't want to change, so I'm going to be careful with that. I need a little bit more Bondo. Put it at the top here along the side and do another sweep. Remember, all this activity here is all of the very accurate shaping that you're doing before the plastic filler has even hardened, which makes it truly the fastest possible way of shaping plastic filler and the most accurate. Once this cures, again, we will have only light sanding, a light block sanding, and this panel will be perfect. Again, I'm tightly pressing the plastic filler and some surface imperfections. Again, I don't worry about those until the last part of the repair, because those are no problem at all. You just put a tightly pressed coat of plastic filler, remove all of the overfill so it doesn't come up proud from the surface, and you fill those and you're ready to move on and with the repair. All right, get my 180 grit. You can see I'm moving through maybe 5, 6, 7, let's say 10 sheets of sandpaper to do this whole job of 180 grit. That's not going to set you back hardly anything. And then with the 180 grit on my longboard, you have very little in supplies and materials, and you haven't done any damage to the paint that's going to come back later, perhaps 6 months later after the summertime, and the customer comes in and says, how come this has gone dull? Why does it look like there's a little deviation in the surface? And I won't have to explain that because we're not creating any paint problems at all going forward, which is a really big part of any repair. If it doesn't last, if the plastic filler and its application cause problems for the paint, well, we don't want to experience that. That's just way too costly in time and money and in your reputation as a shop. We're putting on our dry guide coat. Blowing off the extra, and now we're going to begin our block sanding once again. 180 grit, and here we'll smooth this down. Now you can use 150 grit if you want. Of course, you can use 36 grit if you want. The point is, it's not necessary at all, because all you're doing is giving it that final perfect shape with the block. Okay, now we have this last little bit. We want to continue on here and make sure that the style line matches perfectly with the front one. It's got a few distortions in it, and let's block it just to kind of identify those. You can see there's quite a bit of gaps in the surface in terms of low spots. You can see that already. Turn the block around, and we're hitting it going on the down slope there to reveal how much damage is towards the bottom of the style line. As I did with the front style line, I'm rocking this block, which is a straight block. Again, it's a hard block, has no foam on it. It has a slight curve from edge to edge on its surface, but otherwise it's a completely straight block, and it just we just rock it back and forth in slight little strokes, and it is sanding off everywhere that it touches, and all the area that it moves over is our low spots. So it's a very simple way to identify where it's low, or if there's any high spots, where it's high. You can see that whole area there needs to be filled. We got to do a sweep there. All right, I've sanded it down so it'll have good adhesion. I know exactly where that mark was, but I'm putting a little extra on there just to make sure I get it over the entire width of the area that was low. Put my plastic filler in there. I could take my time and try to smooth it in there real nice, but that's what the blade does. It moves and organizes and defines that shape based on the surrounding area precisely. So that's why, and that's exactly what we want to do. We want to blend our repairs into the undamaged portion of the panel that we're repairing, and that's called success in doing body work. We've done that here, and we've leveled it out with the blade, and we're going to see just how much more we might have to fill. Again, 180 grit, and we're going to rock the blade in the sanding block in that area. We see there's a lot less area that needs to be filled. Quite a bit of it has been filled. A couple spots there I can see. Let's see how it goes as I continue to sand. Again, short strokes back and forth, holding the block flat in that area, and just rocking it as I sand up and down, right up to the tape line. Try to get it right to that level, and so we continue the shape right to the very edge of the style line. Got a little bit there, not bad. Now we've continued to block it, and we're looking pretty good. We have a little bit there that we need to fill and sand, and then we're done. We're doing a review of the whole thing, the whole repair, but here we can see the rear door. It looks really good. I did fill those little dark spots on the door, but it was so thin that it shines through. But it's filled and has a perfect shape. Well, here it is in paint. We can see it's another beautiful repair. The beauty of this repair is the use of the blade. It defines this perfect shape, which is consistent with the front door, the style line, the rear, the bottom of the door, every single area that has been bladed over has a perfect shape. Here again we can see it looks like a brand new car. And again, all attributed to the use of the blade and the accuracy that you can achieve using it. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, view all of our videos on our YouTube channel, and get more ideas on how to repair your own car. Thanks for watching.